Keeping the lights on in Broken Hill is challenging enough at the best of times. Here is where the power lines came down. This is about 56 kilometres south of Broken Hill, on the way to the River Murray, to Barunga, where it connects with the grid, about 260 kilometres south of Broken Hill. So 260 kilometres of wire strung out across this great flat plain. Even on a day like today, the wind's getting up. You can see how this would be extraordinarily vulnerable in a storm. The storm took down seven of these high voltage transmission towers. They've been replaced with temporary ones. You can see there the work going on. I can't go any further than that gate. So this is Broken Hill's lifeline to the grid. Clearly a much better solution would be if they could somehow keep all the power produced locally in Broken Hill and not have to rely on this the whole time. There is a solution to that, by the way, coming up. They're small modular reactors or micro modular reactors, perfect for a location like this. You can basically fit them in a shipping container, drive them in and power a town without any fuss. This is the battery energy storage system at Broken Hill. Brand new, spanking new, opened last year. It's fitted with the latest technology, grid forming inverters. I'll tell you why they're important in a minute. They were provided by us, actually, incidentally, $14 million of taxpayer funded money. So the theory was this: if the line to Barunga went down, as it did when 7 towers collapsed in that storm on the night of the 16th, 17th of October, the idea was that this would kick in right away. The battery would just power up, in it would go, no break in supply. The battery would be sufficient to keep the energy system running in Broken Hill until they can get more sources of power into the system. What actually happened was the very opposite. So early in the evening of the 16th of October, Wednesday the 16th of October, this battery system was discharging electricity into the national grid, going that way, going south to Barunga, feeding in to prop up the lack of supply coming from the lack of coal, etc., etc. So by the time the storm hits, which is around midnight local time on the 16th, this is already discharged. And what happens when the storm hits at around midnight? It switches off. So instead of kicking in, it kicked out. It switched off. And it took another 8 days for them to get it switched back on. They had to recharge it partly by diesel, and they had to change the system in it, so it became an island-forming grid. Now, the importance of these grid-forming inverters is this. Normally, with an old-fashioned battery, a straightforward battery which converts, you have to convert DC power to AC power at some point. What you don't have in there is synchronicity. You don't have that 50 hertz cycle which you need for the grid. It needs to be matched exactly to the 50 hertz cycle in the grid. That's relatively easily done if you've got a turbine in the system, a gas turbine probably, or better, a steam turbine driven by coal. That will be churning out 50 hertz very regularly. But this, to kick it back in and get it up to that grid forming stage with 50 hertz, then it's very difficult. It couldn't be done. So the grid forming inverter, as I say, $14 million worth of kit provided by us, very much experimental at this stage. That was supposed to be able to allow this battery system to restart this grid here, the local grid in Broken Hill, from a standing start. Did it? No. So what happened was, when the battery failed, they had to look for other means of doing it. They already had a diesel generator further back there, which was an old one, but it was able to power up, but not enough. So then they had to come round here. Right next door to the battery storage system is the Pinnacle Place substation run by Essential Energy. They've trucked in portable diesel generators. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can count at least 10 of them. There's probably more. And so for 2 weeks, all of Broken Hill's power came fitfully from here with a little bit of rooftop solar, although that was problematic. The Silverton wind farm, so-called behind me, this was supposed to be part of the great plan to turn Broken Hill into a little renewable island. These were supposed to kick in and charge the battery. But as soon as the storm came through and brought the power lines down, The Silverton wind farm went offline. It needed to be connected to the grid in order to contribute to the grid. And that was it. Nothing, not a megawatt of electricity for the entire fortnight. So this asset here just sits empty, just doing nothing, while 25 kilometres down the road there in Broken Hill, they're struggling to keep the lights on. If you listen to Tilt Energy, who own the wind turbines and this solar farm here, they'll tell you that the two combined produce enough electricity to power 118,000 homes. Now there's less than 10,000 homes in Broken Hill, so 118,000 homes, that should be more than enough. But no. When push came to shove, when they lost the main line, they got nothing out of this. This powered no homes whatsoever. It does power some homes, sort of, during the day. They make money, of course. They make money from renewable energy certificates. Every time they produce a unit of power, they can get the renewable energy certificates, pump this into the grid, probably going the other way. They're not interested in powering this town, and certainly the idea that these are any substitute for reliable, dispatchable baseload power is an absolute con and a joke. The sun's going down now. We're around about, 6:48 here local time in the evening after a hot and stinking 39 degrees. Just when people might be getting home for a beer, but the power, if there is any power coming out of this right now, it's diminishing very quickly, as it does every day at this time. I'll tell you reliably, this powers nil homes from about half an hour's time through till dawn tomorrow. That's renewable energy. Well, this is known as the Broken Hill Secondary Power Station. It's the two diesel generators built in the 80s, early 80s, and they're supposed to be the ones that kick in if that transmission line going over there to Barunga collapses. Well, what happened on the night? Well, as we know, that there was only one of these working. The other one was only running at low output, so they got those into operation within a couple of hours absolute darkness, kick these in and get things going. But the incredible thing is that just 3 years ago, Transgrid, the people who own this system, said that they would like to close these two diesel generators. They weren't needed anymore. They weren't needed because they had the wind farm, the solar farm, the batteries. Everything was going to be fine in this Potemkin village of Broken Hill, the renewable energy nirvana. So they applied to the Australian energy regulator to close these things. Chris Bowen described this decision as silly and perverse. Have a listen. Well, there you go. Chris Bowen thought these things should be closed. He thought it was silly and perverse that the Australian energy regulator insist that they be kept open, but thank goodness they did, because for 2 weeks these were basically the lifeline, along with the portable generators that they brought in. These were the lifeline of Broken Hill, what power they had and what power this entire region, right the way out to Menindee, to Wilcannia, right the way across the far west. Whatever power they had largely relied on this, which was essentially their baseload power. So now I can see, 7 or 8 white utes out there. I very much suspect that they are engineers and workmen trying to get that second generator back into action in case they need it. This is going to be the lifeline for Broken Hill for quite some time to come. So diesel generators shipped in containers. Don't forget that it's only 3 years since Transgrid applied to remove the 2 existing diesel generators from here. They said, well, we can get by with a microgrid, a renewable energy microgrid, with batteries, with the wind, with the solar. All that'll be fine, no problem. But fortunately, the Australian energy regulator turned them down, even though Chris Bowen had said it was a silly and perverse decision. Well, thank goodness the energy regulator didn't listen to Chris Bowen and kept those things alive. And maybe they should have brought in extra diesel generators at that point. But the dream was alive. The whole place was going to be powered by renewables. This was the Potemkin village of renewable energy, the place where they were going to prove how you could run a remote location purely on wind, solar and storage. Well, it failed. It failed utterly. And that's why the implications for what happened in Broken Hill last month are so important for the entire scheme to power the whole of Australia by renewable energy, because it's a simple thing, isn't it? If you can't keep a town of 19,000 people powered up with renewable energy alone, how are you going to do it in a nation of 26, 27 million? It's nuts. It's nuts. Well, it's been very hard for businesses. Abigail Hughes came to Broken Hill 2 years ago to set up a coffee shop. She came from the Sunshine Coast. It had been going very well until they found themselves without power and unable to meet Broken Hill's craving for coffee. I had a chat to Abigail in her shop in Broken Hill.
We were only supposed to lose power between 11 and 5 at night, and then it never went on, and then it didn't go on until the next day. So we were almost without power for 38 hours here in the shop. So we lost everything, like all of our food and milk and stock and yeah. So yeah.
So you just couldn't open the shop, and
we just couldn't open. We I guess because you also couldn't forward plan. Like if we had have known that okay, we're about to lose power now for 24 plus hours, we would have at least grabbed a generator and at least maybe kept one fridge on, maybe two. But we weren't supposed to be without power for that long, so it just kind of kept growing. So we were kind of in more of like a reactive position rather than being able to be proactive. We kind of didn't have that that privilege to be proactive in any way. It was just we were very offensive straight away. So I think when we realised that the power wasn't going back on, we managed to use. We had to go down and get 2 generators, and we were able to at least get the fridges on. And then we brought in some spare coffee machines that take less power and run our older, smaller coffee machines, so that we could at least open and make coffee for people, because we'd gone almost 3 days without trade. So. And they were all of our busy days too. So we really needed to be able to just get coffee out to people, but also give people that sense of community and somewhere to go and chat and hang out, because nowhere was open and it was hot.
Was it easy to find generators?
Not here. They were pretty much sold out, especially not ones with the energy output that we needed. So my husband and father, they went down to Adelaide and had to go grab generators. Just because it was the closest option. They were going to go to Mildura, but they kind of had a gut feeling that Mildura might be sold out. And it turns out we heard from quite a few locals that travel there on the same day that, they were sold out as well. So they made the best decision in the end.
You had no other, you hadn't made plans for this. You didn't have any alternative.
No, I mean, we had a very small generator that we used to run our coffee van, previously. However, again, because we, hadn't planned to be without power for so long, it's not as simple as just grabbing a Jenny and plugging it into a wall and everything's running again. Like everything is wired differently, everything's plugged into different, sockets. It's all a complete, it's quite a big operation, running a cafe. So it wasn't quite that easy. So the guys spent many hours making sure that everything was wired correctly and that loads could be handled, and so it's not quite as simple as just plug and play.
So 3 days without making coffee?
Pretty much, yeah. It was very arduous, and I think our regulars felt it more than what we did, but it was a tough couple of days.
People must have been going crazy without coffee.
Pretty much. When we reopened, so but this was before the power went on. We reopened on, was it Thursday morning or Friday morning? I think it was a Friday. I can't remember. As I said, the days have all melded together. Thursday or Friday morning, we ran the old coffee machine off the generator, and it just doesn't have the output required for the volume that we were putting out. So it wasn't keeping up. The coffee was, not to our normal standard, and we just pumped out so many. And the lineup, we had a lineup around the fish shop at one point because we were the only place open, which we're so lucky and blessed to have had the generators, which, the guys had to go and source. But, just being able to offer that service to everybody was great, but it was tricky. just navigating everything. Yeah.
Was there much information from the power company or anybody else about what was happening?
I think, if I'm being perfectly honest, there was too much conflicting information. I think that's kind of been the biggest problem was, I personally would have been happy with less information as long as it was consistent. I would have been happy to say, we don't know what's wrong, you've got to run off a generator. We don't know what's wrong, but, aim to not trade for 4 days. Like, at least then you can kind of plan. I think every day, every couple of hours, you kept getting all of these text messages telling you to turn off solar, telling you the power was going to come back on. And it kind of it was not consistent. And I think that was kind of the biggest problem that not just us, but I think a lot of people had, was that there was no ability to kind of plan. You were just literally and figuratively left in the dark.
Well, I don't think they really knew what was going on either, did they? I guess it would have been probably better if they had admitted that rather than...
I think potentially, yes. I mean, I can't speak to if they knew or if they didn't know. It certainly seems as if they didn't have a hell of an idea what was going on. I mean, look, at the end of the day, they're really, like, a town of this size, of any size, shouldn't be left without backup power. Full stop. Like, yes, we had a natural disaster, knocked over the towers and whatnot, and that's horrible, but we shouldn't have been left without decent backup power. Yeah.
Before this happened, did you have any idea how you got power in Broken Hill, where it came from?
Look, I'll be honest. I personally was probably quite naive with our power situation out here. I truly did assume that we had this huge solar farm out here. Therefore, we should have, basically instant access to all of this power. I think this whole process has really taught me to kind of investigate a bit more and to be a bit more proactive in terms of, how we're being powered here, even down to our water sourcing, everything. I think it's really important to kind of know that, and not take it for granted.
The council announced, I think 4 years ago, that they were going to be carbon free. They were going to be zero emissions by 2030, because I think they've been told by the power companies, yes, you've got your solar farm, you've got your wind farm, you've got your battery, you'll be fine. But turns out that that's not as easy as they thought, is it? I mean, it's hard to see that they can actually manage on. Can you see that they can manage on those things, just wind and solar and batteries alone, given the experience we've just had?
I personally, look, I don't know a hell of a lot on the subject, so I don't want to speak too much to something that I'm not well versed on. However, I think this is kind of proof that, those energy mediums, I don't think are really going to quite cut it. I think that much is obvious.
Sarah, you're a shopkeeper and a mum.
Yes, I am.
So what happened on that morning when you woke up without any power?
Well, it actually went off the night before, so 5 p.m. the night before, and then didn't return until 5 p.m. the next afternoon at our house.
Was that a Wednesday afternoon?
Oh, I can't remember. I think it was, yes.
So you lost it what were you doing when it went off?
Oh, I don't know if I remember, to be honest. I think we were starting to get organised for tea, to be honest. And it went off, which wasn't, it was okay because it was still daylight. It wasn't hot. It wasn't too hot. So we weren't worried about the air conditioning, which was good. I was able to still cook tea because we have a gas stove. So that was handy. A little bit of struggles with, I have a 4-year-old, so she not being able to turn on the lights at bedtime. She's like, I want the light on, Mum. And I said, you can't have the light on. So it's not sort of understanding that. A little bit of, wake ups in the middle of the night, turn the light on. I was like, I can't turn the light on. The next day, obviously, same, can I watch telly, Mum? No, you can't watch telly. Why not? So trying to explain that, but we did get through it. We went outside, set up the pool. It wasn't too hot. If it was today, it wouldn't be very nice.
This is sort of town where people get together, help one another.
Yes.
Right?
So, and obviously, we had no phone services, so everyone was out driving. That day, the petrol stations were packed. There was a line up around the corner. I don't know if they were just trying to get out of town or
Just stocking up, maybe.
yes, maybe. But yeah, other than that, like obviously we don't want it to happen again.
Presumably you had to close the shop.
We had to close the shop, yes. So we closed the shop that day, and then there was another couple of days later that in the morning it had to be shut. So, yes.
Do you put this down as just part of life in Broken Hill, or do you think you deserve better service than this?
Well, I don't think it would happen anywhere else, and I don't think it should happen. So hopefully it doesn't happen again.
Some people were much worse affected than you, though, weren't there?
There was.
Tell me
yes.
about people you know.
Some people lost power a lot longer than what we lost power. Some people didn't get returned until like midnight the following night, if not early hours of the morning, where we weren't too bad. So,
Have you got solar panels?
No, I don't.
I gather they told people with solar panels to switch them off because they're interfering with the diesel generators.
I'm not too sure. Yes.
What about the other shopkeepers up and down here in the main street? There must be some, with people that keep fresh produce, for instance.
Yes, there was a lot of lack across the road. There's obviously a lot of food places, so that obviously affected those a lot. They had to throw out a lot of food, which wasn't good at all. So, yeah.
Were you aware that you had a windmill and you had a solar farm and a wind farm and a big battery here in Broken Hill? Did you know about that before this happened?
No.
You just take, I guess like all of us, you just take for granted that the
Yes,
power's going to come. You don't have to think about where it comes
No, you don't at all. You just hope that you're going to be able to turn on the power each day.
We'll be back